These are dozens of bizarre facts about the Rolling Stones that reveal a band far stranger than their legendary reputation suggests. Behind the iconic tongue logo and timeless hits like Satisfaction and Sympathy for the Devil lies a story filled with accidental masterpieces, outrageous behavior, and secrets that have remained hidden for decades.
I saw her today at the
The Rolling Stones' journey began with one of rock's greatest coincidences. In 1950, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards met as children at school in Dartford, Kent, but fate had bigger plans. 11 years later, on October 17, 1961, they bumped into each other again at Dartford Railway Station. Jagger was carrying records by Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters, revealing to Richards a shared musical passion that would change everything. This chance encounter sparked the formation of what would become one of the world's most enduring rock bands, eventually inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. The very name Rolling Stones came from pure improvisation. When a journalist from Jazz News called asking for the band's name, guitarist Brian Jones panicked. He glanced down at the floor, spotted a Muddy Waters LP, and saw the track Rollin' Stone. Just like that, musical history was born from a moment of panic. But what happened next gets truly bizarre. Bill Wyman wasn't chosen for the Rolling Stones because of his bass-playing skills. He was invited to join simply because he owned an amplifier. The band desperately needed equipment, and Wyman happened to have what they required. This practical decision kept him in the band for over 3 decades. The creation of their biggest hit defies all logic. Keith Richards wrote Satisfaction while completely asleep. He'd left a cassette recorder running beside his bed, and when he woke up, he discovered he'd recorded the iconic riff followed by 40 minutes of his own snoring. Richards had absolutely no memory of creating what would become one of rock's most recognizable guitar lines. Even stranger, that legendary riff was never intended for guitar at all. Richards originally imagined it played by a horn section. Richards himself is a walking collection of impossible stories. He once stayed awake for 9 consecutive days, surviving purely on adrenaline, before finally falling asleep while standing up, reaching for a cassette. During this marathon sleepless session, he wrote, "Before they make me run." His superhuman tolerance extends to substances that would kill ordinary people. The famous story about Richards having a complete blood transfusion to kick heroin addiction? He invented that rumor himself, apparently finding it amusing that people believed such an extreme tale. Then there's the time Richards literally snorted his father's ashes. In 2007, he casually admitted to mixing his cremated father with cocaine, explaining to NME magazine, "The strangest thing I've tried to snort? My father. He was cremated, and I couldn't resist grinding him up with a little bit of blow." Even for Keith Richards, this represents a new level of rock star excess. The band's early image was carefully manufactured rebellion. Their first manager, Andrew Loog Oldham, deliberately positioned them as the anti-Beatles, encouraging headlines like, "Would you let your daughter marry a Rolling Stone?" To reinforce their bad boy image, they even wanted drummer Charlie Watts to hide his marriage to wife Shirley in 1964, asking him to pose as a bachelor to maintain their dangerous reputation. Oldham also famously removed original member Ian Stewart, the sixth Stone, from the official lineup because his appearance didn't fit the image. Charlie Watts, ironically, was the band's secret romantic. While his bandmates cultivated images of hedonistic excess, Watts stayed married to the same woman for over 50 years, until his death in 2021. The contrast couldn't have been more stark.
But if you try sometime, there's Anastasia.
Some of their most famous songs emerged from the strangest circumstances. Jumpin' Jack Flash was inspired by Richards' gardener, Jack Dyer. After an all-night session, Jagger and Richards heard footsteps outside. When Jagger asked what the sound was, Richards mentioned his gardener, and the song practically wrote itself. Their manager once locked Jagger and Richards in a kitchen, refusing to release them until they'd written an original song. The result was Tell Me You're Coming Back, which appeared on their debut album. Without this forced creativity session, the Jagger-Richards songwriting partnership might never have developed. The band's famous tongue logo has an unexpected origin story. Created by art student John Pasci in 1970, it was inspired by the Hindu goddess Kali, often depicted with an extended tongue. However, Pesci ultimately used Mick Jagger's own mouth as the template, creating one of rock's most recognizable symbols from the frontman's actual lips. The logo first appeared on their groundbreaking album, Sticky Fingers, featuring artwork by Andy Warhol. Their live performances have shattered numerous records. In 2006, they performed for 1.5 million fans at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, making it the largest rock concert in history. Their most played song in concert is Jumpin' Jack Flash, which they've performed over 1,100 times. The band's relationship with money reveals fascinating contradictions. In 1995, Microsoft paid them $3 million to use Satisfaction in Windows 95 commercials, marking the first time the Stones had allowed their music in advertisements.
Screamed in vain. Yeah. Ah, yeah. That was confusing you is just a name. We decided that we would have a soda.
Yet in 2002, they played a private birthday party in Las Vegas for $7 million, performing for just one wealthy Texas investor. Their promotional stunts were legendary. To launch Beggar's Banquet, they invited journalists to a medieval feast, then surprised everyone by bringing out trays of custard pies for the band members to fling at the assembled press corps. It was chaos disguised as a marketing event. The Stones inadvertently created a cocktail craze. During their 1972 tour, Mick Jagger discovered the tequila sunrise at the Trident restaurant in California. He liked it so much that the band ordered them across America, even dubbing their tour the Cocaine and Tequila Sunrise Tour. This was during the era when they were creating masterpieces like Exile on Main Street, often cited as their greatest work. Legal troubles led to unexpected charitable acts. When Keith Richards was arrested in 1977 for heroin possession, part of his sentence required him to perform 2 concerts for blind children in Toronto. Richards later claimed the judge was lenient after hearing about how he'd helped a blind girl get into a Stones concert. Before rock stardom, the band members had surprisingly ordinary jobs. Brian Jones worked in the sports department at Whitley's department store before being fired for stealing. Mick Jagger attended the London School of Economics. Keith Richards spent 2 years as a Boy Scout before being expelled for fighting. These mundane beginnings seem impossible given their later reputations. The band created their own secret language. They used the pseudonym Nanker Felge on songwriting credits, combining Nanker, their word for making goofy faces, with Felge, named after their roommate Jimmy Felge, who was notorious for wearing dirty underwear on his head. Their relationship with the Beatles was far friendlier than the media portrayed. The supposed rivalry was purely marketing fiction. Jagger contributed backing vocals to Baby You're a Rich Man, while John Lennon and Paul McCartney sang on We Love You. Brian Jones even played oboe on Beatles recordings. Mick Jagger nearly became a movie star in one of cinema's most controversial films. Director Terry Southern wanted him to play Alex in A Clockwork Orange, with the rest of the band as his gang. That adaptation was eventually abandoned, but imagine how different both film and music history might have been. The band survived one of rock's darkest moments, the 1969 Altamont Freak concert, where they hired Hell's Angels as security for $500 worth of beer, ended in tragedy when 18-year-old Meredith Hunter was stabbed to death just 20 feet from the stage during Under My Thumb. The killing was captured on film by the Maysles brothers for their documentary Gimme Shelter, and marked the violent end of the 1960s counterculture dream. Even tragedy couldn't stop them. After founder Brian Jones was dismissed from the band in June 1969 and died mysteriously in his swimming pool just weeks later, they performed a memorial concert in Hyde Park for 250,000 fans, with Mick Jagger reading poetry by Percy Shelley. Soon after, guitarist Mick Taylor joined the band, contributing to their most creative period until his departure in 1974. Today, at ages 81 and 77, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards continue defying expectations. Their 2023 album, Hackney Diamonds, was their first collection of original material in 18 years. The band has won Grammy Awards for albums like Voodoo Lounge and Blue and Lonesome. Their 2024 tour grossed $235 million from just 20 shows. They've scrapped plans for a 2025 European tour, but promise to return in 2026. After more than 60 years, the Rolling Stones remain rock's greatest contradiction. They're a band of ordinary men who became extraordinary through a combination of talent, timing, and an almost supernatural ability to survive anything the world throws at them. Their strangest fact might be the simplest one of all. They're still here, still creating, and still surprising us after all these decades.